Hello everybody and welcome to the Daily Review, episode number 239 for Sunday, October 25th, 2009. And the film I'm going to be reviewing for you guys today is Lars von Trier's new film, Antichrist. This film is written and directed by Lars von Trier, and it stars Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg. It is about a married couple known only as he and she, and they are basically making love at the beginning of this film, and their young son, Nick, falls out of a window and ends up killing himself. And the rest of the entire film basically deals with the three stages of grief, pain, and despair, and the couple retreats to this cabin in the woods known as Eden. And so Willem Dafoe is he's a therapist, so he tries to help his wife out overcoming her grief, pain, and despair, and some pretty horrendous things happen. I really don't even know where to begin with this film. I mean, I think Antichrist is a film that is going to shake people, and it already has started controversy. The film, right off the bat, if nobody knows what this film is really about or what it contains, it's unrated by the MPAA, which basically means that it would have been NC-17 without a doubt. There are graphic depictions of sex, and there are very graphic scenes of violence, which I will get into in a second. And the first thing I remember thinking by the end of Antichrist was, remember that scene in Misery when Kathy Bates walks in with that little block and she puts it between James Caan's ankles? She beats it with a sledgehammer. Well, Misery's got nothing on Antichrist. I think that it's one of the few films that I may have ever seen in my life that I consider more experiences than films. The only other two I can think of off the top of my head are Requiem for a Dream and the foreign film Irreversible. Both of those movies left such an impression on me when I first saw them. Irreversible is not one I ever want to experience again. I've seen Requiem for a Dream multiple times. It's one of my favorite movies. And I think the big strength of those films is not only the impression that it leaves on you, but I think that if I were to see those movies again knowing what happens, it's going to leave that same mark, I think. I think Antichrist falls in that category as well. I think the first 5 minutes of Antichrist, where the couple makes love basically in super slow motion, shot on a really high contrast, black and white, is some of the most beautiful filmmaking I've seen. It's a really striking series of images, and it's shot undeniably well. I feel like if anybody was to critique this movie, and there are going to be people that are going to absolutely hate it, there's no denying that the directing here is really, really top-notch, and the performances from Willem Dafoe and especially Charlotte Gainsbourg are exceptional. I think Charlotte Gainsbourg deserves an Oscar nomination for her performance. I think it's so brave and just very bold for an actress to do that sort of thing, and I'm hoping that it gets recognition come Oscar season, even though this film is a very small movie that I believe it's only playing in 6 theaters across the country, so there you go. I think a big strength about Antichrist is that von Trier creates this sort of mood and atmosphere that is so dark and creepy, and the only other filmmaker I can kind of compare it to is the way that I feel when I watch certain David Lynch films. It's a style in which not much is shown, I think, initially, but it creates this sort of dread inside of you, and I think as things are happening, it makes it that much worse. There is a big it to this movie, which I'm not going to ruin. I'm sure most people seeing this review already know what I'm describing, but there's an occurrence that's going to happen towards the end of this movie, which is why it's shocking and graphic and violent. And I'm not going to describe what it involves. If you want to know, Google it, look it up. But I feel like the image itself, or just the description, is graphic and disturbing, but I think what makes it more horrific is everything leading up to that. And I think if I were to just see the it by itself, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of disgusting and gross. But seeing everything that leads up to it, it creates such this tension inside of you that when it does happen, the theater I was in just exploded with screams and gasps, and it's crazy stuff. I also want to say that I don't think that this film is graphic for the sake of being graphic. I think, first of all, I do want to applaud von Trier for making a film not conform to the MPAA standards. He made the film the way he wanted it, and that's very refreshing in today's times. But I don't think that it is graphic for the sake of being graphic. I don't think that he's being perverse or morbid or whatever other adjectives you want to describe the violence and sex in this film just for the sake of doing it. I think he's trying to show the audience something and actually create an emotional response out of them. When the film ended, I was in such a daze on my drive home. I almost felt drunk in the state I was in, just because of the effect that this film had on me. I think the final image of this film, the final shot, is so beautiful and so symbolic in such a strange way. I really applaud Lars von Trier for making this film. I think that he's a very interesting director. If you haven't seen Dancer in the Dark, rent it. It's one of the very few films that I will not call you a human being if you don't cry at the end of that film. It's insane. I give Antichrist a 4.5 out of 5. I think this is not a recommendation, by the way. I'm not recommending people see it. I do not know your personal tastes. I just know how I feel about it, and it had such a lasting impact on me, and I think it's a film I'm going to be thinking about for many, many months to come, possibly years. Anywho, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another one for you.